Adrian, born and raised in rural upstate South Carolina, Adrian Bazemore owes the majority of his success to the incredible teachers and mentors he was so fortunate to have learned from throughout his life, especially in his early years of school. Education was the focal point of most conversations he recalls having with his parents from a very early age. It was this incredibly inclusive environment around learning that encouraged Adrian to want to know more, to do more, and to do better. Having been the first person in his family to graduate from university, Adrian wasted no time in settling out into the world after college to make his mark. Working first throughout Asia for several private equity firms, Adrian returned to the USA in early 2002 and joined P&G as an account manager in one of their largest territories. Since then, Adrian has held a myriad of roles and assignments within P&G, consistently being ranked within the top 5 in every division in which he has been a part. Adrian currently manages several projects and desks within the e-commerce space for P&G. White space opportunities such as e-commerce are his passion, and he believes firmly that white space represents the frontier for success for the millennial, always-on generations of today and the future. Adrian sends enormous gratitude to all teachers, educators, and mentors in the audience today. For your talk, Adrian, the questions I have here that you're going to address are: how should we prepare modern learners for their future? What is the biggest challenge we're facing in preparing students to engage in the 21st century workforce? And how can we as educators address this challenge? So, Adrian.
Thank you. Dr. Fagan, don't know where she went, but let me officially say, as the representative for corporate America, that was a drop the mic speech. She kind of stole my thunder, but that's all right. I'll let her do that. I am so full of gratitude for being here. I thank you all for having me. I thank you for investing in yourselves for being here. I thank you for investing in your kids. I thank you for investing in me. You don't know it yet, but you are. Most of all, I thank you, Ms. Mary Murphy. Without you, we would have nothing. Thank you very much. So, as my bio said, I am currently a senior account executive with P&G. Although I'm not here representing P&G, I am bringing definitely a wealth of experience with me. And specifically in the e-commerce channel, the intersection that all of you and I have in common is that we both work with millennials, lots of them. And that's important for one reason primarily, and that's the future. Millennials are the future, and they are a very, very different demographic and group that we work with, work for, all of the above. And so the intersection that we have with millennials, all of you and I, and that brings us together is technology. So how does technology sort of umbrella over all of us and allow us to create something great? I get to spend a lot of time with different groups. I mentor a great deal. I do have several interns, and then I belong to several industry organizations that really try and coach and develop young talent to bring them into the workforce. And one of the things that we have seen, we being these different groups that I'm a part of and my colleagues, is what I like to hope is a phenomenon around technology, and that is the concept of technology being a expectation versus a convenience, and how we're positioning technology in the classroom today so that when those individuals get in front of me as future leaders, they will know how to use technology, because that will be my expectation of them. They will have full purview over technology. One of the things I need to sort of put out on the table, because this is something that Mary and I have had lots of conversations about, and that is this idea that technology in some way begins to dilute or, in some situations, erase the concept of critical thinking. I'll use a story to illustrate this. I was recently contacted by a colleague of mine, and the colleague of mine said, you know, I need your help. I've been working with this young talent, mentor of mine, wanted to really help them out, and when I asked them to come to our join-up, so that a lot of times we'll have office hours or whatnot at different points in the week or the weekend, and I asked them to bring some of the projects that they had been working on with their manager that they really felt like were awesome. And it just didn't turn out like they thought, didn't get the feedback that they wanted. And I said, sure, no problem. And so we set up a time to meet, and I met this young individual, and they brought, and on the phone I had said to them, you know, bring me a couple of examples of something that you thought was really great, like, and just, you know, I want to know why you thought it was great, and then let's talk about it, you know, because it's a case study. So we did, and I sat there and I got, you know, we exchanged pleasantries and we were talking, and about an hour into it, I said, well, I'm gonna, you know, let's talk about, you know, your examples that you've brought. And I started reading through it, and it was pretty clear to me that this was really nothing more than a bunch of Google activities, as I call them. So going out to that wonderful thing called the internet and going to Dr. Google and finding out what Dr. Google says about things, and then just basically saying, that's what they say. They has gotten to be a very big group. Trust me. I hear it all the time. And I just finally, you know, I got kind of halfway through, and I pushed away a little bit, and I said, well, this is all great. I'm glad you found a way to, you know, bring the internet to paper. I know paper is a disappearing source, which I get reminded about all the time by my team that is telling me, wow, you still use a pencil? What is that? Yes, I am old. And so I said, you know, what's your thought in all of this? And this was supposed to be a rock star. And he kind of looked up at me and he said, well, it's all there. I said, no, it's not. This is what's the so what out of all of this? And he says, well, I don't know. I said, well, there you go. You got to critically think your way out of this, kiddo. This is just a bunch of ideas on paper. These aren't your ideas. So what do you feel about this concept? Well, I don't know. Okay. And then I could start to see the wheels turning, and then I could start to see a little bit of panic, almost like he was about to ask me, you mean I don't get a trophy? What? Anyway, we got through it, and one of the things that we talked about afterwards was, it's okay to fail. I cannot, and I can't put my finger on this, quite frankly, but I cannot help but to think that technology is lending itself to creating more of a fear of failure in young people, which it should be doing the exact opposite. We should be rewarding falling down as long as they're getting up. So fall down 7 times, get up 8. We all have that tattooed on our backs in e-commerce right now because it's still one of those spaces where you're trying to figure it out. But that was really the sort of aha like moment for me, and I called my colleague and I said, are you seeing more of this? Because I kind of am too, but I'd never really seen it in this type of a petri dish environment. And they said, yeah, starting to see more of it. So that's an example of where technology, you know, this individual, and let me be very clear, this individual was remarkably adept at technology. So it's not just about how to use it, but how to use it for you and what it means for you. So where does this come into the classroom? And a lot of this is rhetorical, and if you have something to say about it, by all means, pull me aside. I would love to hear about it. What are we doing to make sure critical thinking skills, very basic thinking skills, stay on par with the proficiency that these young people are learning technology? I assure you, every single one of them knows how to use one of these. This is just basically a fifth appendage at this point in our lives, right? 50% of all e-commerce transactions, 50% occur on this. Millennials are the largest purchasing group on the planet right now, bigger than baby boomers. And 50% of their purchasers are going through here. And most of them still live at home with their parents. Imagine when they start to get their own lives in their own homes. So, again, I want to thank you very much for investing in yourselves. When we're talking about technology, it can be the greatest gift or the biggest curse. And I know that it is up to us to continue to challenge these individuals because, again, one of my, and I should probably get my clicker and, oh, let me pause right here. This is the sort of what we call the canary in the coal mine moment with technology. This just shows you rates of adoption. This is something that we internally and in the e-commerce and internet space look at. If you look at rates of adoption, it took less than 9 years to have 80% of the population with a smartphone. As fast as we are moving, this is the slowest we will ever be going forward. I promise you. If we were in a smaller, more intimate group, I would entertain you with some other facts and figures that probably would make your head spin. And that is the call to action that I want to bring to you to say, how can we help in the future more so that these kids are prepared to be future leaders? These are just a couple of thought starters that we always use in this space. Ask the so what. So if these kids are using, and I say these kids because I call my kids my kids, but ask the so what. What's the so what? What's your thought about it? It's not just according to Google. It's not just according to, God forbid, Facebook. Always on environment. If you haven't heard that term, you are going to hear it very soon. It basically means what it says. We are always on, no matter what. So my advice, in case you're not doing it, just assume that your kids are operating in an always-on world, and challenge them to critically think in that always-on world for themselves. Don't let the always-on instrument, iPhone, smartphone, whatever you want to call it, think for them. Finally, this is the phrase that started it all for me. This was told to me by a mentor of mine in grad school. There is no traffic jam on the extra mile, and when Mary Murphy and I were first talking about Create Something Great about 3 years now, wow, whew, getting old. This was one of the things that was just, I just use this all the time. I tell every one of my groups this, because this sets the bar. This sets the expectation. Unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, we are entering a global marketplace. Our global workplace is now a local workplace. Just this morning before I flew here, I was on the phone with my team in India, my team in Poland, and a team in Costa Rica. And we were all on the same video web chat. And we were all exchanging ideas, and we were all having to be very cognizant of one another's sort of missions. And that's the expectation. That is the expectation. And by the time the children that are in front of you today get in front of me, I can't even imagine how far advanced we're going to be. So again, I thank you both, or all, so much for investing in yourselves on this one. Keep continuing to create something great. You obviously are doing something right, because Dr. Fagan's, I want a copy of that one. Thank you. Question time.
Right, I have a couple here in front of me. So, Adrian, what does it look like when you see talent?
What does it look like when I see talent? Now again, this is, I'm looking at this through the e-commerce and technology lens, but what I see as talent is one word: agility. Hands down, agility. The individual doesn't blink when asked to do projects that are extremely different. They know how to tie them all together. and it's basically seamless. We use this word a lot, seamless superhighway, that type of concept where you just have an individual who intuitively knows how to resource, how to go get the information they need to get the answers that they are looking for. I'd also say that it's very important, and hopefully at some point, Mary, this is my next crusade to talk with you, we can start tapping into helping young people identify their true strengths. I think if there is ever an opportunity to help young people understand sort of what they should be doing or what they want to do, it is understanding who they are. Now, I know that sounds a little touchy-feely, and that's not what I'm trying to get at, but we do a lot of work around understanding your strengths, because a diverse team is going to outperform a homogeneous team any day of the week, period, point blank. So if your sets of strengths are X, Y, Z, mine are A, B, C, we have this really great combination of being able to divide and conquer with the different strengths. So I think individuals who are clearly in touch with what their strengths are and who know what they can do, call that confidence, I guess, and agility. That's really the two standout traits when you see really top talent. I'll give you an example. I had an intern start last week, and you know, when we were kind of getting to know each other and exchanging introductions, it was kind of funny because her opening line to me was, well, my favorite thing to do is write code. Now imagine the dude on the e-commerce team hearing somebody that can write code. Score. So it's interesting now how you have young people who they know that is a huge opportunity. I mean, as a matter of fact, if there were young people sitting in this room right now, I would tell them all, go learn how to write code. You will never be without a job, I promise you.
Okay, I have one more question here. What do you think about focusing and learning with the always-on environment? What do you suggest to teachers? How can we battle Snapchat?
Oh. A really good firewall in here. I do not do Snapchat and I don't do Twitter. I don't have that much to say about myself, so I don't do either one of them. And when I get asked to do them, I give people really a weird look, like, me? No. That has given me pause to think. I will tell you that living in an always-on environment, I think one of the key ways of learning is not to be too prescriptive. Now, again, I get that you are all probably sitting out there saying, he has no idea the curriculum we have to follow. I'm the outside the box thinker, right? So for me, if I was teacher for a day, which is my dream after I retire from P&G, I am going to get somehow into teaching, because if I wasn't doing this, I'd be sitting where you guys are. I would structure class time in a way, or some sort of when we look at projects, make it very obtuse. Try not to be too prescriptive. I think when we get very, very prescriptive, it tends to, and I say we, meaning I'm just as guilty as this, but leaving a very open-ended, very sort of top 10,000 foot level almost, sort of, hey, class, I want to work on X, Y, Z, or whatever the project may be for the semester or for the 9 weeks or whatever sort of system you guys are on. Leaving it much more obtuse and letting them kind of come back to you. I mean, Mary told me about the sessions you guys had this morning, and it sounded fantastic, where you're basically just putting it out there on a piece of brown paper and letting them come up with all kinds of ideas. I mean, quite frankly, guys, that's what I'm going to be looking for from them. The secret to innovation is who's sitting in front of you today. So if I can't get them to think in an innovative way, or if they're not coming in front of me with an innovative way of thinking, there's going to be a lot of other students and a lot of other candidates that will be. Maybe not from this district, maybe not from the US, maybe from some other, school system. But to me, learning in an always-on environment is doing a lot of what we call the heavy lifting on trying to be prescriptive. And if I'm way off base here, please, after this is over, pull me aside and say, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard, and here's why it's not going to work, because I love hearing, differing opinions. But to me, where I have seen coaching and developing individuals in an always-on environment, it is where you sort of give them a little bit of a breadcrumb, and we talk about that a lot. Give them some breadcrumbs and then see what they're going to come back with. Let them come back with a whole fully built gingerbread house, or however you want to look at it, but try not to create too much of a box. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.